Hi, I'm Judy Kerr, and welcome to Acting is Everything. I'm really excited. I have with me Bonnie Gillespie, who is a casting director, and she does a lot of SAG indies, and we're all hoping to work in those. So I think it's going to be really, really interesting. Hi, Bonnie.
Hi, Judy.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Now, you came, I first knew you as a columnist with Backstage West. I was a fan of yours, reading your writing, and called you up and said, I want to meet you.
Right.
And so you started out as an actress.
As a kid actor.
And in Atlanta. And moved here, had a lot of different jobs, which we'll be talking about, but you're a columnist, and then you wrote the column about casting directors and interviewed casting directors, became a casting director.
Right. Honestly, I had no idea, but I was interviewing 200 or so casting directors as an actor survival job, because actors pretty much need very flexible jobs so that they can go on auditions and do plays and showcase and all that. And my survival job was writing these interviews with casting directors. And what I apparently was doing was getting to meet with the top casting directors on the planet and get them talking about their career. And I had no idea I was studying, putting myself through sort of grad school on how to be a casting director.
Right.
But apparently that's what came of it. And I had no idea it was a dream of mine until I started doing it.
The universe really is magical,
Yeah,
isn't it?
it really is. I'm so glad it happened. It just was so unexpected.
Well, so you were just telling me about a film that you're working on now. What is that? How do you go about casting? Pretend I'm from Mars.
Okay. Well, we have these things called movies. Okay, and there are studio feature films and there are low-budget indies, and that is my area of expertise. I've never been hired by a studio to cast a feature film with millions and millions of dollars in its budget. So far, the largest budget I've had is $500,000 for the film, and that's still considered fairly low budget. And that is under the SAG contract, SAG Modified Low. There's a whole series of SAG contracts that are for the lower budget projects. And when it's, there's still SAG actors working for scale, which is the amount of money that SAG sets aside for the actors to earn so that they have their bare minimums and that certain work hours are covered. And so I end up populating these films with actors who want to work on the indie films at the lower scale level than they would if they were working on the studio pictures.
So say if actors don't have agents, they can submit, you put your information on Actors Access or where the actors go to submit online?
That's correct. I last year just started going entirely electronic. I used to accept hard copy headshot and resume in the mail, and then I ran into a storage problem. I'd been casting for just over 3 years, coming up on 4 years now, and I said the storage is an issue. I can't keep all of these headshots from all these actors I've met in just 3 years. I can't even imagine what it will be like by the time I've been casting for 20 years. And so I said, I'm going to just try this and see how it feels. I'm going to only accept electronic submissions, which is where the actors choose a headshot along with their resume and perhaps a demo reel, but I only get a thumbnail. And then if I click on it, I can see it larger, and I can print it if I want it, but I never do. And so electronic submissions allow the playing field to be leveled quite a bit, because the actors can submit themselves as well as agents and managers can submit electronically as well.
Wow.
But they all come in together. So.
Is there any particular hint about submitting online, how to appeal to you, or how to get yourself a step ahead when you see something?
I would say the best tip is to make sure that your headshot looks really great as a thumbnail, because what looks beautiful at 8x10 may not look so great at 2x1, because it really is a small thumbnail version of the headshot. And if it's a 3/4 shot, which is the type of headshot in which you show more of your body than just your tight close-up, you actually, in the thumbnail, have a head the size of your maybe pinky fingernail, and it gets lost in this sea of otherwise very nicely cropped, really beautiful headshots. So the colors need to be dynamic. There certainly are still people using black and white headshots, but not nearly as many as there were even 3 or 4 years ago. And
do you prefer color?
It doesn't matter to me. I prefer that the headshot and the actor look alike. So that to me is the biggest preference. And
Address that a little bit.
I think that actors aren't very good at choosing the headshots that look most like them. They choose the one that makes them look the way they hope they look. And I think that's great to have that picture and use it, you know, put it on the mantle, give it to your mom. Right.
Yeah.
But as far as the headshot, I think what a lot of people forget is that it's not a flattering picture, it's a marketing tool. And so if you look at a headshot as, how is this going to get me in the room in front of the people who are going to cast me in the way that I am most likely to book the part? Okay, so if you are of a certain type, you need a headshot that sells that type. You don't need a headshot that flatters you into another category.
Well, say the current film that you're
Right.
casting, what are the different types on there, and what kind of pictures would you want to see come in?
Oh, that's great. That's a wonderful question. We have, for instance, a security guard. And so I'm getting a lot of headshots from actors who maybe don't dress in costume, because I think that's a little going overboard, but who suggest an officer of some sort.
And what would that look like
And
in
so
a
then that
headshot?
would be
What would they have on?
like a dark blue button-down shirt with a blazer on top, a sports coat of some sort, so that they look a little more official and tight than perhaps a T-shirt or something a little more casual. And then
And what kind of look on their face? Do you want a big smile?
exactly
for the
not
security
right. You need what's called a law and order shot, which is you're very serious. You know, even if it's a comedic film, if you're going to be playing the role of the security guard, you have to have some level of authority, unless the breakdown says specifically he's a wacky security guard, and then you can do something a little looser. Then we also have the foul-mouthed grandmother, which is great because she's a wonderful crotchety
Why
character.
aren't I up for that?
Did you submit?
No.
Judy.
Oh, what is up with me?
You have an actor's access account like everybody else.
I
You
do.
click and submit, and then
I
you're in the
do.
mix.
I do.
All right. I
I
bet
know.
you'll be in
Okay.
there when I get home.
Yes,
today.
I better be, yes.
But anyway, so for that, you'd want a little character-y shot. Even though the film is not a comedy, there are a couple of comedic characters. And if in reading the breakdown you get the sense that your character is comedic, you need to choose the headshot in your submission that is the one that really sells that type. And so it's a good idea for actors to have a couple different headshots to choose from so that they have those primary and secondary types ready to go when the submissions come.
Now, it sounds like, because you're doing it online, that they just need those different shots online. When they come to you, they don't need to necessarily bring the same shot, or
Some different
you want
casting
that?
directors have different opinions on that. For me, once you are in the room, you just bring a headshot and resume, and it doesn't matter if it's the same one or a different one than you submitted online. There are some casting directors who feel very strongly it needs to be the exact same one that got you in the room. So,
Well, then maybe, because it's hard to afford to have 6 different shots.
I wouldn't
run
have
off.
6, 2 or 3. You have a primary type, you have a secondary type, and then you have, if you're a commercial actor, your full face, nice big smile, commercial headshot, which is what allows you to be the pitch person for a product, which is very different than the theatrical type of casting that I do. And so I would say if you knew that your primary type was creepy bad guy and your secondary type was goofy dad, that's plenty. You don't need 6 different character shots. That's really going overboard, and it becomes expensive, and acting
Right.
is expensive enough to pursue as it is.
Yeah. Now, we were talking about Taft-Hartley, and
right.
you've Bonnie also writes a column for it's called The Actor's Voice, and it's a free column, and I ask her permission so many times. Can I use that column to take to my workshops?
Of course.
Because you had a great one about Taft-Hartley, and you mentioned that on this film, there is someone who's Taft-Hartley. Now, on the SAG Indies, non-union actors can submit, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, will you talk about that?
Even on big studio features, non-union actors can submit. They may not have a good shot at getting in, but just because you're not yet in the union doesn't mean that you can't submit to try and get an audition, because you never know what we need, and you may be exactly what we need. And if that gets you in the room and then the producers want you, we will find a way to get you, even if you're not yet in the union. That's where Taft-Hartley comes into play. And that allows us to bring in someone who isn't a member of the union and put them in our film, hire them for the project, and then they become eligible to join the union at that point. Now, why a lot of people get nervous about Taft-Hartley is because if the union decides that you could have hired someone else who is already in the union, who is the exact same type as this person, who has the same level of credits as this person, and really you were just doing a favor to some producer's wife or whatnot, you will be fined. And by you, I mean the producers. And so there is a deterrent to producers when they look at that and they're coming up with their budget, and especially on the low budget projects, the idea of a $500 to $800 fine for having cast someone who wasn't already in the union can be something that might make them a little nervous. That said, I know plenty of actors who will make it known, I will pay my own Taft-Hartley fine if the production gets fined because I'm ready to be in the union. That said, I would caution the actors against getting into the union too soon because there are opportunities that you could be cutting yourself off from if you're not yet ready to compete at that next level.
Now, if someone is SAG eligible,
That's the best.
The SAG with the little E, can they work in this film without joining SAG?
If they're already SAG eligible and they're going up for a project that is SAG modified low budget or above, okay, so that's usually around a $500,000 budget level, they actually will need to go ahead and join SAG if they were already eligible before they got that part. Because then they become what's called a must join. They have a certain number of days that are kind of like a free pass, but then after that they do have to go ahead and join because now they're working under union contracts, plural, and they actually do need to go ahead and take that initiation fee down there and join up.
Well, and we do both agree, do not join SAG too soon.
It really can cut off a lot of opportunities for you. You know, a lot of people say, I need an agent and I need to join SAG and I need to come to LA for pilot season. That's a recipe for bitter actor syndrome, if ever I've heard one, because sometimes you're not ready for an agent. You know, you need to show that you can go out there and get your own work and have a little hustle.
And earn money.
So that an agent then wants to earn a percentage of that. And of course, they'll help you get perhaps into more doors, but if you're not getting into any rooms on your own, you're not going to be attractive to an agent anyway. And as far as joining SAG too soon, there's plenty of paying non-union work out there, and if you don't yet have a demo reel with really good footage on it, you may be cutting yourself off from opportunity to get that tape because now you're in a much denser talent pool with people who have worked on series for years, people who've been in studio features for years, and they're all competing for that one line on the big sitcom. And why would they hire you when they've got all these other people who've been working for decades? So it can get a little tough. And then of course the pilot season issue is it's so competitive, and it's when everybody in LA just gets a little crazier. Because it's really tight. Even those of us who don't cast pilots, I cast one last year, but that's my one and only experience casting a pilot in 4 years of casting, and even my schedule gets wacky every single year because of pilot season, because the actors are more stressed out, trying to get to more appointments. Even people who are casting commercials notice that it's hard to get certain actors in because there are agents who say, I don't want my actors to come in for a commercial because I'm keeping them free to do a pilot. And so you run into challenges of getting people who would normally come in and read for you to even show up, not because of the actor's choice often. So it's just a very intense time.
But people run to Los Angeles thinking that they're going to be part of pilot season. So why aren't they?
Well,
they come here, they're ready, they want to.
And I think the focus needs to be rather on, I'm coming to LA for pilot season so I can get seen on a pilot. It needs to be, I'm coming to LA, it happens to be pilot season. All these other actors who've been working in LA for years are going in on pilots because their work is known. I'm going to go in on all those little roles that they're not going in on because their agents are holding them aside for the pilots. And so the secret opportunity in pilot season really is going in on the episodics, the shows that are continuing to be in production that aren't new pilots this year, because there are so many actors who are kind of removed from the talent pool in order to keep themselves open for pilots.
And the SAG Indie type of films.
Oh my gosh, it can be really tough.
And is this a busy time of year, pilot season, to do small films?
Pilot season is a busy time in general. I have found for me, and this definitely became a pattern that was apparent last year, I am actually busiest casting the indie feature films in the late spring, early summer. And that's when most of the shows go on hiatus. Well, that makes perfect sense. Because the low budget indie films, we're never going to come up with enough money to turn an actor's head. You know, if an actor's in it for the money, a low budget indie is not going to be it. However, if they are a television actor already and making all their money doing TV, then they might want to take time during hiatus to do a low-budget indie film because they're doing it for the project, not for the money. Right. And so I find that that actually is my busiest time of year, is probably from May to August.
Right. Bonnie has such great viewpoints in all of this because she is the casting director, and she also writes books for actors, and the self-management book is really a treasure because you talk about doing all this, and of course you have your casting cues too. What about the demo reels? Now, I know they recently had a contest in Los Angeles about demo reels, and I think, were you there?
I was a judge.
Judging?
Yeah, I was a judge.
And one of my students, Marion Kerr, no relation, won the non-union dramatic demo reel from the industry people. And it's just a great, she's an inspiration to actors because of how hard she worked. She moved here from Orange County, didn't know anybody, and is still, I think she's still non-union, and didn't have an agent, and yet she's working, as you said, all the time.
There's plenty of work, and that's the nice thing about this industry, is there really is plenty of work out there. A lot of people focus on the people, and my favorite saying is pursue the work, not the people. Because if you pursue the work, the people will follow. The agents, the casting directors who have to meet you, the managers who really want to sign you, they will come. They'll see that work. Like, for instance, your student having that wonderful demo reel that was exposed to many members of the industry through this contest, and then, of course, at the event itself, a huge audience at the Key Club to get to see this on the big screen.
It
was fantastic. It was a gala event. It was
it really
red
was.
carpet and everything.
Really?
It was really sweet.
Oh, good. Well, tell me about those demo reels. What was it that attracted you?
In general, I like a short demo reel. I like a demo.
How long?
Never more than 3 minutes. And in fact, I'm okay with 1.5 minutes. And a lot of people say, oh, that's too short. How can you possibly know what the actor's work is like in 1.5 minutes? And I say, okay, listen to the radio. How long does it take you to know if you want to hear that song or not? Sometimes it's just 2 seconds. So honestly, you really can tell an awful lot about a demo reel and an actor's work right from the beginning, and hopefully they lead with their strongest work. That is definitely a big recommendation. I would probably not mix commercial and theatrical work. I would have a separate demo reel for commercials, but I've seen actors mix them effectively, so I know it can be done. I think, like with most things in this town, there are no real rules. It's just that there is a system that does exist, and you kind of have to know it and respect it and know when you're breaking the rules.
Yes,
because there are none, but there are some. I know it's complicated, but we all know that's true. For me, I think the sound needs to be really tight on a demo reel. A lot of people who didn't get my vote in the demo reel competition lost it because they had one clip that was at a very high volume, and then the next clip was a very low volume, and then the next clip had a little popping or hissing, and a good demo reel editor can equalize that, and it is really worth the expense to make sure that the sound is level, because if we're constantly having to change our volume, we're not paying attention to the work, which is the whole reason you put the demo reel together.
Right, it's passed by.
Exactly.
What about actors who produce their own scene? Or they go to a company and it really looks good, the production value is good. How about that?
I've seen it work. You know, I did that once. You know, I had taken some time off between my work as a kid actor and then when I moved to LA, and I thought, boy, I need some new stuff. And I went to one of those facilities, so I know how that works. It's pretty clear, usually, that it is a produced scene. However, I've seen some lately that I'm thinking, wow, is that from a show? And now you kind of don't know. Is it from a cable series or a pilot that never got picked up? And so you do have a little more leeway right now, but it really has to be good.
But if the acting is wonderful, is terrific, do you care where it came from?
No, because in the end, all a casting director is doing is assessing the talent and knowing if you're the right type for this role right now. The rest of it totally doesn't matter. You know, it may matter to an agent who wants to be able to market you a certain way, but really a casting director, once you're in front of us, it's just, we just want to know, are you the guy? Are you the gal? Are you the one we're going to cast today? Or at least bring in front of producers. Yeah.
How do you like to see someone walk into your office to read for you?
That's a great question. Confident, prepared.
What do you mean by prepared?
If I have given actors access to the script before the audition and I've given them more than a day with prep time on the schedule, which usually I schedule auditions a week in advance, I would really appreciate if they'd read the entire script. And I know that there are actors who say, well, why am I going to read the entire script when my scene is only, 2 pages and it's just a pre-read, why does it matter? And I say, well, because the actor who did read the whole script and made some choices about this character that went beyond the 2-page sides that we gave you is the one who's going to get the call back, because they know more about this character. There are places in the script where other characters are talking about your character, and you're not going to know that from just the sides.
Now, I believe that, and I teach, that an actor has to memorize their lines for an audition, because I believe that that's when you go in and give your opening night performance. It's not, they're not lines that are stuck in your head forever, but that you know your cues, you know your lines, you have your, of course, always carry your script for an audition.
Absolutely.
So you can look down, because that's when the lines are going to fly out. Now, do you feel differently? Do you want to disagree with me?
Well, what I want to say is that the caution I have on that is there are actors who will turn that advice into a way to get stuck in a certain way of doing the lines.
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
And so I don't disagree with you that it's a good idea, but I believe there is a caution that comes with it. So many actors will come in off book, absolutely memorized, and whether they hold the sides or not, which I, of course, just like you recommend, they always hold, because if you do lose a line, have that. We're not challenging actors to come in and be off book. So you're not impressing anyone by coming in and saying, look, I can do it without the paper in my hand. That's not what impresses us. What impresses us is that you get the character, you've made some choices, even if they're wrong, you've committed to them, and that you confidently pursue that. But what happens if someone is married to their choices is if the director says, Bon, I like that, but can you ask him if he can try it this way? Gives me a little tweak, and I go to the actor and say, okay, I want you to do it again, this time, more this, more that. And if the actor has really worked those sides to memory based on the flow and the tone of the voice and the lilt and everything, and can't make that adjustment, then that's a blown audition. And that's actually worse than if they had shown up not committed to memory, but had the ability to be a little directable.
Right. I want to address that with the audience, because always with your scripts, figure out your acting first. And when you memorize, use blah, 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 that kind of monotone type voice. Or when I'm memorizing, I do it on tape. And when I'm recording my lines, I put it in a real funny little voice, so I could never imitate how I'm hearing myself say it, and I'll do mine very flat. I may act my cues to how I think the other actor is going to read them, or the casting director is going to read them, so I can respond when I've put my tape recorder on pause to say my lines. So I'm so glad you said that, because it's so important to sing. When you memorize the lines, sing them, do everything, and then make 4 different choices. You're angry, you're talking to your mother, you're talking to your dog, you're using these words, so they just are like our language is. We are almost at the end of the show. I can't believe it. And I know, well, I knew it would with us. We'll have to do another one. But I'm teaching a workshop in Atlanta, and I know that's where you're from, and you're very close, and Allure Management is bringing me in. And I was wondering if you could tell me some about the market in Atlanta and the work. Well, you worked there, and and what kind of acting community is it?
It's a tight one. I really enjoyed my time working in Atlanta. It was so wonderful. It was obviously, most of it was decades ago, because I started out as a child actor there. But I think the theater is really wonderful there. The industrial films are huge. I did so much.
What kind of industrial?
Like training videos for corporations. There were probably every couple of weeks I could work on an industrial training video, which was, even though I wouldn't be the one teaching someone how to use a product, I would be the girlfriend of someone whose dad used the product, and they have a backstory or whatever, you know, interesting little things that they do to train people how to use whatever new product they're rolling out in their corporation. These are seen all the time in conference rooms and boardrooms all over the world, and Atlanta is a really nice hub for producing those. There's also more and more going on in terms of independent film. Shooting in Atlanta, the film festival scene really does grab up a lot of those Atlanta films, which is great.
Really?
Yeah,
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 good.
it's wonderful. And I like that in a right-to-work state like Georgia, a lot of people can do a lot of union or non-union projects because you don't have to join the union in order to do union films in a right-to-work state. California is not a right-to-work state.
Right.
Georgia is, and I enjoyed that for a long time.
And there's obviously teachers and
yeah.
agents, and there's a whole thriving industry.
Absolutely.
I know that because Bonnie contributed to my book in the out-of-state area, and it's a huge section, and I'm so happy about that I have that kind of information there.
Atlanta really is the southeast capital for entertainment. I mean, even though there is a lot going on in Florida, and obviously Louisiana has its market as well, and Wilmington, North Carolina, huge. But Atlanta seems to be the hub, I think, basically because of where it's located. There are actors who live in Atlanta who have agents in each of the other markets I just mentioned, and who will make the drive to go to projects that are shooting in those other areas, and I think that's really convenient.
I have to close the show, but we're going to continue talking. My email is at the end of the show, and if you want any information, write me. Be sure to put cable show in the subject line because it will go to my junk filter. But I'll be happy to pick it out, and thank you, Bonnie, so much.
I had such a blast.
It was really great.
Thank you for having me.
Now, what other states would you go to when you were living in Atlanta and audition around?
I had an agent in Tennessee. I had one in North Carolina, one in South Carolina, one in Virginia. I didn't have one in Florida because my Atlanta agent took care of me there. I had a Savannah agent, though.
Really?
So, yeah, I had several in Atlanta because you can be multi-listed. And you don't have to just sign exclusively with an agent in Georgia. Like here, you absolutely have to. They'll make you sign a contract that's that way. But
so there were commercials, there was print work, there was
tons. I hand modeled. I did
that's right. You
so
were
much.
a hand model.
Oh my gosh, I think I earned most of my living as a hand model for
I wanted to
years.
talk about the jobs that actors should have
right, the survival jobs.
and not do those full-time jobs. Well, it's in your column.
Absolutely.
The actor's voice.
Yes.
Okay,
There's a
good.
survival jobs column that I recently did that talks about the best and worst kind of jobs to have as an actor.
I loved that so much. It was so bright. What's next week's column about?
It's going to be headshots. We're going to look at good and bad headshots and some tips from photographers about what to expect when you go in for your shoot. Types of retouching to avoid, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, lots of, yeah. And we're going to compare side by side headshots that didn't work for actors and then the headshots they got that started working more for them.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So you can see side by side comparison.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. Good.